Hey, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. Call Allah Yahweh, Shem Yahushua, Shem Kokodash. Once again, double honors go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders, great millstone. Salutations to the fellow Akim out there on the highways and byways, pushing this truth throughout the four corners. This is Naaman with the DC Camp. And as you can see, this article here, we have one of these rich, or I should say, wealthy Edomites. There's a difference. That according to this article, had a stroke of consciousness, or conscience, I should say, and doesn't feel they're worthy of the money that their forefathers generated. Wow. Hmm. Hmm. I think you're a little too late. Reminds me of Job 20th chapter, of course. I mean, Job 20th chapter. Uh, let's get that real quick. This is going to be Job. Is that 10? Yep, here it is. Job 20 and 10 says his children, who are we talking about? We're talking about these Edomites, these so-called white people. All right, they, especially in the last, whoo, I can't put an exact number on it, but the apostles have been out on the highways and byways for more than 30 years. So, but especially in the last 10, I would say, things started to really pick up. Of course, especially since YouTube, uh, all this information has just been a constant barrage of truth, you know, kicking these devils in the ass. And well, here it is, Job chapter 20, verse 10. His children shall seek to please the poor. We're talking about our oppressors. We're talking about the ones that have been living lavishly, all right, at our expense. And we're talking about since the days of Columbus, actually a little bit before, but since on this side of the world, since the beginnings of the so-called New World, all right, where during that time there had been a vast transference of wealth from the Israelites to the Edomites and everyone else. All right. Anyway, it says once again, Job 20 and 10, his children shall seek to please the poor, and his hands shall restore their goods. All right. His bones are full of the sin of his youth, which shall lie down with him in the dust. You can't shake this off. All right. This taint, like it says in Numbers 35:33, is so much blood that has been spilt, all right, by your people's hands. All right, you murderous devils. The only way to resolve this is by what? Your blood. And the blood of him that shed the blood in the first place. All right, that's the only way it's going to be resolved. All right, so let's continue with this. It says Morgan Curtis, that's her name. It says her life story is the American dream in reverse. Her great grandfather was a banker in early 1800s New York. He invested in railroads while his brother invested in Central American mines. The family wealth grew as it passed through the generations. That's just the thing, generations. We're talking about wealth here, we're not talking about riches. There's a difference. This is that old money that was passed down, all right, at our expense, our people's expense, all right. Uh, this is what they cut us off from being able to do. A lot of people, our people, they, for some reason, their brain just stops trying to process stuff after this bullshit history they learn over here. Well, you were freed, Lincoln freed the slaves. And it's like, okay, uh, so now we can do anything. They just believe that they were freed, and that's not the case. All right, first of all, they don't understand what emancipation means. They think it means free. No, you're not free. You never were free. All right. Um, all this devil did was just change shit up. Created this illusion that everybody, the majority of our people, are caught up in. No, no, no. And now it's going to get worse. You're at a time now, he's getting ready to change up again. All right. And again, a lot of our people are just ignorant of what's really going on. All right. They still under the impression that it's going to get better here, not knowing mm, 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 how really fucked up it's going to be. Anyway, continuing on, it says the family's wealth grew as it passed through the generations, and Curtis's father added to the pile as a management consultant for major firms. Naturally, Curtis had a gilded childhood, educated in West London private schools, going on annual Swiss ski holidays, her own pony. But today, Curtis, now 30, lives on a farm in California with 40 other people. She lives on $25,000 a year. Curtis did not make, well, it sounds like she's trying to make an atonement for something, right? It says Curtis did not make bad investments or lose the family money in Las Vegas. She has chosen to give up 100% of her inheritance and 50% of the income she earns as a coach, redistributing it to grassroots social movements, black liberation organizations, indigenous land projects, and climate justice groups. She has even created a publicity accessible, color coded spreadsheet listing her annual donations. She seems like she's really haunted by this, doesn't she? This is because Curtis's banker ancestor didn't start with nothing, and Curtis is keenly aware that the American dream for some means an American nightmare for others. Her great, 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 that's an extra great, grandfather owned a cotton mill that ran on slave labor, while her maternal family had an 11,000-acre sugar plantation in Cuba. My ancestors made harmful and immoral choices participating in slavery and colonialization. And so I see this money as not mine, as belonging to those communities who had their who had their land and labor stolen from them. Well, she's absolutely right in that. But is this going to save her? Nope. If she's an Edomite, nope. We are at the beginning of a phenomenon nicknamed the Great Wealth Transfer. According to financial services group Sanlam, in the next decade, millennials will inherit 323 billion euros from their parents. The trouble is, not everyone wants this money. A small but seemingly growing subset of young people feel guilt and shame about their inheritances. In response, some seek therapy. What did we tell you about this truth? This truth. Now, they're not going to probably come out and say, all right, how they came to this deep insight, what they call it, introspection. What's making them look so deeply within themselves? Uh, hey, it could be the videos. Hey. It says, in response, some seek therapy, some seek drugs, and others seek social change. Last year, one man made the mistake of seeking Twitter. It says, I spent money and caused chaos. Robert Batt became a lord at 5. He now runs a mental health clinic. All right, a few days ago, I took a medium dose of acid. Began a Twitter thread that was rationed last June. This means vastly more people replied to it than liked or retweeted it. An almost sure sign you said something controversial. Across 36 tweets, the man revealed he resented his mother for giving him $100,000. The world told him, you do labor and are paid a fair wage for your labor, and that's how you earn the right to exist and be a member of society. The acid made him realize he felt guilty because he had never done this. And that's a lot of these spoiled motherfucking pieces of shit. All right, that's just it. They're spoiled, rotten, and they have the nerve. All right, but hey, Edomite is an Edomite. You know, fuck them. It says thousands of replies were unanimous. First, People told the man to read the room. Second, they said some variation of, if you hate your money, give it to me. But the thread was a rare insight into the minds of the guilty rich. What we see with some very, very wealthy families is quite a lot of neglect, says Robert Batt, founder of the Recovery Center, a London-based mental health clinic for wealthy clients. Now, that's not neglect in the sense of a child going unfed. He says, explaining that one teen began self-harming after a difficult day at school. She goes back to the big house in Belgravia, and no one's home. There's probably a housekeeper somewhere, but no family. And that's a lot of them too, but fuck them. They're not raised by their actual parents. They have nannies, you know. Um, it says, there's probably, it feels odd to call that neglect, but I guess emotionally it really is. Since the 1990s, child development expert Sonia S. Luthar has repeatedly found that substance abuse, anxiety, and depression are elevated in children on both ends of the socioeconomic spectrum. Good for them. Good, you know. See, because that wealth, that money is tainted. It's blood money. All right. It says at the age of five, Bat himself became lord of 18 Norfolk villages when his father died. By 15, he was a menace who didn't really do anything with my life apart from spend money and cause chaos. He became addicted to cocaine, alcohol, and shopping. All the responsibility, all that wealth, all that history led me into decline, despair, and misery. In other words, he couldn't handle it. All right. He is troubled when families focus on protecting the wealth, not the child. There you go. It says powerless, Jeff Bezos and his ex-wife, the novelist and philanthropist Mackenzie Scott. So is it any wonder, let's just put that in there. So is it any wonder some children become antipathetic to money? It says, I've just come off a session with the granddaughter of one of the richest people in the world. She said, it doesn't define me, it's never defined me, and I love that. I think it's great, but it's quite rare. Yet the guilty rich are growing in number, or at least more are speaking out. Mackenzie Scott, ex-wife of the world's second richest man, Jeff Bezos, has given $12 billion to nonprofits in the past 2 years. Like many, I watched the first half of 2020 with a mixture of heartbreak and horror. Scott wrote in a July blog post that year, adding that she hoped people troubled by recent events would make new connections between privileges they've enjoyed and benefits they've taken for granted. I would be willing to bet that the wife of Jeff Bezos got fed up of some of the things she heard talk amongst, uh, those people that in that um, social order that she was part of, and it just got to her, you know, and that's just my take on it. I don't know. But then you gotta wonder. It's like, here you are, you're the wife of one of the, they claim, but we know better, to be one of the richest people in the world. But we know that's not true. But let's just say recognized as one of the richest people in the world. You've got it all, and yet you stepped away from it. Yeah, you got your cut, but I mean, this said she gave 12 billion in the past 2 years. Gave it away. Hey, the conscience is boy. It says Abigail Disney, of course, whose family needs no introduction, has said she opted out of being a billionaire and would pass a global law banning private jets if she could. Resource Generation is a community of the richest 18 to 35-year-olds in America who are committed to the equitable distribution of wealth, land, and power. Really? All right. Founded in the I keep saying the In the 90s, the organization has seen rapid recent growth, going back to Job 20a and 10. They seeking to plead. Hey, that's what you say. People that say there's nothing to these scriptures, they're full of shit. All right. It says, of course, it says the organization has seen rapid growth, ending 2021 with 65% more members than 2019. Last year, more than 800 members pledged to give 100 million to social justice movements. Hey, this shit is falling apart. It's like too little, way too late. All right. The organization's UK counterpart, Resource Justice, was established in 2018. One of its founders, Lonnie Taylor, is a 31-year-old Londoner whose father made his millions in oil. There is genuine guilt that comes from really benefiting from a really unjust system, Taylor says. I don't see that money as mine. I see it as belonging to the planet. Okay. Resource Justice runs a 6-month program. In part, that's kind of a broad statement in that he says, I see it as belonging to the planet. You gotta narrow that down there, Hoss. It says, well, the wealthy learn, it's a 6-month program, Resource Justice, it's the one in London. It says they run a 6-month program, Praxis, where the wealthy learn about inequality and share their personal stories. It helps bring people to a place where they can step into action rather than hiding their position and feeling guilt and shame. Oh well. That's all I got to say. Oh fucking well. Curtis first became aware of her privileges age 8 when her family purchased a second home on the Isle of Wight. I had the sense that we were different. It says in her teens, a close friend got a job to help her mother with the rent. As it was like, oh wow, I never even had to think about supporting my family. Around the same time, Curtis became climate conscious. She read about the Canadian tar sands, oil fields larger than England, in a magazine and approached her father. Horrified, he said, oh yes, those are very profitable. Your grandfather actually invested in them. See, that's all, like it says, the Most High is in none of their thoughts. All they are about is, you know, soaking up the world's resources and everyone else be damned. That's what all these people are about. The irony of this is that it appears that this is going to, that saying, what makes you laugh also make it cry. And that's what's going to happen. Things of Esau are searched out as an Obadiah. And he's going to be laid bare in Jeremiah 49, Uh, he's going to have absolutely nothing. Nothing. All right. All this information, negative, I might add, is coming out on this devil and what he's done, on his rise to the top, so to speak. All right. All the wickedness that he did. All right. And thinking that he's never going to have to answer for any of it. But oh no, he sees these signs in the heavens. He sees the chariots of Israel. Zechariah 5th chapter, these things are there because they're cursed. And they're in the house of the thief. The thief being these piece of shit Edomites, these so-called white people. All right. It goes on to say, it says, I felt guilt, shame, anger, and a fiery longing to change it. The money accumulated to $600,000 before she obtained full access in 2020. So far, she has redistributed 2/3. All right. She wrote a poem and all that shit, and they keep on, going down here. I'm not going to take too long on this, but yeah, these devils. Hey, this is a time where, like Obadiah says, he's making them small amongst the heathen. All right. Everybody hates. Everybody wants a piece of this so-called white man. And it's getting very bad for him. It's to the point where in the not too distant future, it's going to suck to be an Edomite, a so-called white man. Remember, back in Genesis, 4th chapter. All right, what did Cain say? All right, it's going to come a point where, those that see me are going to want to slay me. And also part of that was, if anybody was to slay him before that point, all right, and we know that anytime you touch one of these devils, they make sure they make an example out of you. All right, going back to that Genesis 4th chapter. All right, if anybody should what? He reserved this devil for a special purpose. All right. Hey, so like they running scared now, so they have to really hurry up and establish this new world order, thinking that that's going to save them somehow. Hey, so with that, hey, Shalom.